Right now? Right now? Yay, welcome to the Salt and Light Podcast. This is Kurt. We're with Graham and Keenan. Adam's on a well-deserved vacation.
Vacation
because he's just been overwhelmed.
Yeah, he's been
So we all laid hands on him and we sent him out.
Yes.
So we're excited to talk to you today, though.
But he's going to come back rested and rejuvenated, I believe. So
He will.
What in the world?
A little bit of a sunburn.
What in the world is Adam Gardner overwhelmed by?
This podcast is a lot of work.
He got a nice haircut. That
Yeah,
should
he did.
take a load off his mind. Anyhow,
He's got to get up there and sing in front of,
he does.
1,000 people.
He does. We don't have to do that.
He doesn't have to. He gets to.
He gets to. And he does a great job. If you're listening to this, Adam, way to go. You did a great job this past Easter. So what do you guys want to talk about?
I just want to say,
on?
Adam, proud of you, young son.
Proud.
For
Of him.
just in general.
Yep.
Careful, Bob might get upset that you just called him
Keenan
son.
is now unwrapping in the microphone.
Ooh.
There we go.
Big no-no.
Very good, yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, well, we're here.
Yeah, we're here.
We're here to go, ready to go.
Yep.
A lot of things going on
How
in
was
life.
this past Easter for you, Kurt?
How's the past Easter for me?
How was this past Sunday for you? Did you do anything fun with the grandkids?
We did. We had everybody over. We had we have an Easter egg hunt, and then we have and then Keenan's going after some more.
Keenan's looking like my 2.5-year-old daughter after she opened the eggs. He's just eating and eating away. He's ravenous right now.
Yeah.
What are those Rice Krispie treats? I haven't had one of those in probably a decade.
So what do we do? I'm just waiting for the decibels of the Rice Krispie wrapper to get out of my ears. So I can't.
Yeah, what'd you do, Kurt?
We one of the things we do was a tradition with my youngsters was that I make clues that eventually lead them to their Easter baskets. So they get about 4 or 5 clues, so they have to run throughout the house to find the next one based on that. So we did that with the grandchildren this year.
You're like the
They
ruler.
you know what they liked? They liked finding the clues more than the actual Easter baskets. When they got to the last place,
Yep.
where the Easter baskets were, they were staring right at them, but they were looking for the next clue.
Wow.
Yeah.
So are the clues in an egg, or were they?
No, I haven't. Just write them on a piece of paper and stick them in different places.
So one clue leads to another
That
clue.
leads to another clue, leads to the next clue, yeah.
Until they get to their baskets.
When you write them out, you have to go backwards. So you make sure they're in the right order.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was?
I could come to your home and do it for you as well.
I love that. I think that sounds like fun. What was your most clever clue that you put out?
Oh, boy. What was the last one?
You had to keep them probably pretty simple.
They're pretty simple because we had, ages 2 through 5.
Were there any clues that they couldn't get, or were they all pretty?
Well, they were probably helped by an adult.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the whole thing, they dug that.
Nice.
That's fun.
Yeah.
I love that.
That reminds me of how do we find Jesus? We have to discover him in the scripture, don't we?
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Wow.
actually thinking of that when you were saying that.
Yeah.
And I
Took a
think
turn.
some people, they think of it in the way that you've kind of have the Easter basket chase with your kids, or hunting down the clues with your kids, is I have to go from one clue to the next to find God, but I don't know if it's that complicated.
You're right. It's not that linear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a little more innate and straightforward.
Right. And Jesus doesn't leave us guessing.
No, he doesn't.
He leaves us wanting more.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
wanting or thirsting was the word I was going to use.
Yeah.
Keenan, what do you have going on in your brain? You always have something good to share.
No, not a lot. A lot of contentment. A lot of. I'm glad that it wasn't much of a clue game to find Jesus. That I really think that he gives us the clues in the Word and in people. It makes it quite simple. It's just we have to take him up on it. And so I I was hoping to hear more of the adventures of Kurt on Easter Sunday. They're
there.
It sounded like a really good time. Did you pack all of the eggs with candy?
I didn't. I believe Grandma did, though. She
Okay.
took it. She's all in on these things.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Magdalene's the same way.
I'm less.
She's
less
festive.
fascinated. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Magdalene's very festive in our household. Like, she's the type of person, even for Valentine's Day, to like stream things from the ceiling, put up Happy Valentine's Day on the wall.
Was that the way it was in as she was a youngster?
I think so. Yeah. We even have a red plate that you get to eat off of on your birthday, and that was a tradition in her household. That's now been passed to our household, and so like a lot of these little festive things that
We used to have a red
really
plate. It came out randomly though.
Oh, really?
It was whoever we kind of voted on the family out of the four of us who gets the red plate. You had to tell why.
You have no idea how stressed out that would make me
Yeah.
from an OCD standpoint.
Yeah.
I can barely handle mismatching forks.
Oh, you
Really?
didn't like a non-matching.
I wouldn't
thing.
take you for the OCD type.
Yeah.
Those kind of things really bother me. They disappear is what
Specifically
happens.
with like on the dining room table.
Well, more in like the cupboards. If we've got mismatching stuff, it bothers me down to my core. It's something really that I've had to
So if you
work
have like
through.
2 sets of Tupperware, that's a no-go.
Yeah, mismatched Tupperware. We've got 2 sets right now. They're both Pyrex, or one's at least a Pyrex knockoff. But if you just get like a random plastic Rubbermaid dropped in that cabinet, there's nothing I would want more than to just discard that, because
So
though it may be useful, it doesn't match.
Are you the type of person that there's a very specific way that you load the dishwasher, and if you
Yes.
don't do it in that perfect, most
You don't
Atomic
optimize
way.
the space.
yeah.
So today on Salt and Light
not
Podcast,
that
we
way.
will be doing a deliverance of Keenan from
Yes.
the spirit of OCD.
OCD.
Yeah.
Which it's funny if you look
In
at my
Jesus' name.
I'll
We're not.
I'll continue
His
going.
head's spinning around in a circle.
I'll continue going down
You
the
just vomited
the,
on the
Yeah.
floor.
the OCD travel lane here.
It's turning green.
But if you go up to like my desk though, you'd be like, no way. But ask Ashley. There's certain things that are just like, I can't move on until they're like at a place of completion. And if I do, it's really hard. So example, Monday, this past Monday, we had Monday off, right?
Yes, we did.
So I knew I wanted to put a new flooring down in my camper. So that I did.
Sure.
Put new flooring down. And that task was complete. But then I realized I have some time here. I could start putting the trim around, the new quarter round trim to kind of cover up the imperfections. But I knew I didn't have enough time to finish it. And it was a really difficult moment because I realized most likely the kids will wake up, I'll have to go back in the house and I won't finish. It was so hard to stop working on the trim without it being completed and go inside. And it wasn't like I don't want to see my kids. It was just like you were ripping me out of a place where my mind and focus was. And
Unfinished
so
project.
it's
It
those.
just itches at you.
Yep.
I've seen that side of you though before, Keenan, when we were working on my Honda Civic.
Yes.
2007.
Yep.
It's now in a junkyard somewhere, probably
Because I worked
apart
on
from
it.
Parts. Yeah, and we had a strut, and there was one bolt that we could not get loose, so that we could put the new strut in. And I remember you put a blowtorch to it. You tried to hack at it with saw. You
Did
took
all
a
kinds of
wrench
things.
to it. I don't even. You did all kinds of things. I think you hit it with a sledgehammer 50 times, and it would not come loose. And I remember looking in your eyes, and you took it more personally than I did, and it was my car. And I was like, it's okay.
These are
This will pass. I'm going to sell this car now.
If man can
$50.
build it, man should be able to fix it. So same thing with loading the dishwasher. Those things, the red plate, seriously, this is the confession moment. The red plate would freak me out.
I think we should strap you to my desk for a while and then watch you overcome all of this, because it'd be overwhelming for you.
That's why I sit in a chair in your office and with the door still open so I can escape as needed.
Yeah.
That's why we need each other, though.
That's right.
Total non sequitur. Can I do that right now?
I would love that.
So we were out in the harvest just before this.
For lay people listening, can you explain the harvest?
Well, I want them to read the Bible, and then they'll know what that is. But it's when you go out and you just tell people about
or
Jesus,
watch the shows
right?
too. That works.
Yeah. So we're out talking to people about Jesus downtown, and we were. So this is how it came up, and we were talking to a couple, asked them what we could pray for them for, and they were both. They wanted us to pray for the Ukraine, and so
for Ukraine or the Ukraine.
The Ukraine.
Capital T.
like the
No,
Facebook or whatever you want to do. So we prayed for the Ukraine. Is the OCD again? And what we
I think he's just antagonizing.
what we did then is we were walking after we were done with that. We were chatting about we were chatting about how we might use force or self-defense in situations. And so,
who's we? You were talking with
me and my two boys. We
Okay.
were out harvesting.
Okay.
I will leave their names out of it.
That's fair.
So as to not.
But not your biological
dogs
boys.
So and in the conversation, one spoke about we were just jousting a little bit. One was mentioning that something about how they wouldn't use force for something, and so I said, "Well, you just prayed for the Ukraine to have all sorts of armament to defeat Russia, so you had no problem with them killing Russians."
Is that specifically what he prayed for, or was he just praying?
That's a very
He
unique
prayed
prayer.
for armament for that,
Wow.
which
I usually pray for manna.
deep in our hearts, we kind of like that.
Not
So
negotiations.
It spurred a
armament.
conversation. Spurred a conversation like, well, how would Jesus pray for the Ukrainian situation that's going on right now?
Probably not for peace, but for bombs.
Yeah. So who would Jesus bomb? So that's a bumper sticker that's always fun to see. But how would he look at that? Where do you stand?
That's a really good question. It's a broad level question as well, because you're kind of moving it now into governments going to war against one another, which in some ways I look at differently than a interpersonal kind of dispute that you might have with someone, as far as when is it appropriate to use force.
So you think it's more antiseptic because it's a government, so it's kind of far out of your hands, or?
I think it's more kind of like nations warring, and you see that more, I think, in the Bible. I think it moves out of the realm of murder into kind of like when you see John the Baptist, for instance, and he's talking to different people and they're asking him what he should do. He says to the centurions, he says, like, he doesn't tell them to like drop their posts and don't do your job. He says, don't extort people from their money and just be just, basically, in what they're doing. And so I think a lot of soldiers, even from the U.S., they're doing what they're called to do. And that's a really good question, though. At what point do you start to check
go beyond John the Baptist once? Go beyond Pentecost.
Go beyond Pentecost.
Yeah.
Backwards or forwards?
Forward.
Okay.
Gotta be forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How do you see it then?
In the kingdom, it's a completely different mindset
Yeah.
than in the world, in the sense that I don't think, well, I know it's not Jesus' will for anybody to kill anyone in the kingdom.
Okay.
And because I don't think there's any murder or killing in heaven. And that's why I say that.
Yeah.
I think, though, in a fallen world, it gets messy in the sense of when is it just to go into a warfare, where you even look at something, classic analogy would be like example would be like World War II, where you see the Allies going against Hitler and stopping him from spreading and invading other countries, and you see some of the atrocities that he's doing in like the Holocaust and the human rights violations, and you think, oh, that seems like a just reason to go into war. It's really messy still,
Yeah.
And as a Christian, you even question, well, should that be my response to go into that war, or is there a different way that I can handle this through the kingdom that would deal with this problem in a different way? Because you don't see in Acts, for instance, the persecuted church saying, let's rally together and let's rise up and let's fight back. Like, you never see, like, when Paul and Silas start pushed out of a town, you never see them go, hey, let's get our boys and let's go back in there and let's show those Jews who's boss.
It's like a West Side Story thing. Yeah.
So it's
Wow, that would take a turn.
It's really, there's a lot of tension there. What do you have any thoughts on it?
I want to hear what Keenan has to say first.
No, I want to hear what Kurt has to
I
say.
want to see what you have to say. I think it's an interesting. So even in this conversation, we could get some folks in a dander as they listen to this.
Yeah.
Because of
Or a lather.
a place they would come from. But I think it's okay to have these, be inquisitors on this and wrestle with it. I think it's an important thing to wrestle with.
And I had a professor in my MDiv who basically said there's never a reason as a Christian you should ever use violence.
Yeah.
Even if someone came into your house and started robbing your stuff,
Yeah.
you should not use violence. It's not the kingdom
or,
response.
Or even so Keenan wants to know what I think. So I agree with what you just said. If an interloper came into my bedroom and was going to harm my wife, I would go ahead and do what I had to do to stop him.
Sure.
I'd have to ask for forgiveness after that then.
Mm-hmm.
So Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was a raging pacifist, decided, I'm going to be part of trying to assassinate Hitler, and then I'm going to take it up with God afterwards, essentially.
Right. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say Bonhoeffer's a pretty good example. I think what comes to mind, it's funny, in we talked about The Chosen here briefly and then more in another podcast, but there's that scene where James and John are sitting there, and you see it in the scriptures where he just wants to rain fire down on these Samaritans that are spitting and cursing out Jesus and the Jews, and Jesus just turns around, and I, it's contextual obviously, but I think there's that moment where that's our fleshly desire to get our pound of flesh to raise up and defend our rights, and Jesus just, I think he contradicts our fleshly desires. I'll just say that, right? So in so many different ways, and I think we have to allow him to, or at least convict us. Mm-hmm. And because people can get up in a what'd you use for a word?
I use
dander.
Get your dander up,
huh?
older time.
I thought of
phrase.
like dandruff when you said that.
Or in a lather. But I think that's good to be there, because at least you allow Jesus to maybe speak to your heart and work through it. Because I think if we're just so resolved in our perspective on the thing, then we're just as much danger then too.
Right.
I mean, look, I come from
just shoot him in the kneecap thoh.
Yeah, kneecap.
I would.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I've got a large portion of my family served in the U.S. military, and I myself wanted to more in the Coast Guard, but they wouldn't let me join the Coast Guard Academy. So I wound up in playing fake Navy at Maine Maritime Academy. But you can just get exposed to it long enough that you see the chivalry and the valor and all these things that you would describe in maybe an odd way to the kingdom of God, but then you go through, like we were chatting earlier, the Beatitudes or the Sermon on the Mount, and you go, oh, okay. It's just a counterculture that Jesus lived, and I think it asks of us a kingdom response that I think probably we're not able to muster up as consistently as we would like to. To your point, Kurt, if someone came crashing through my door, I'm prepared to defend my family in more ways than one, and I would hope that I could fervently pray over the intruder and they walk away peacefully and they drop their weapons and walk out. But if they don't, that I get into my wife or my kids.
Yeah.
Right.
So
and coming full circle on a macro scale, at what point does that become your country? Right.
Right. Well, so confession time. Right. So a couple of days ago, I think the Ukrainians offed another Russian general. So I read that. It's the 8th one. I'm reading that in the news, and I give myself an internal fist pump, saying,
Sure.
Yes, another one gone. But I realize that I shouldn't get fired up about that.
Right.
That I'm not excited about that. On other occasions, when we have street disciples going out on Friday or Saturday nights, our instructions to ourselves and the street disciples are, when there's a fracas on the street, by no means do we put ourselves in the middle of it, because it's just not worth it. But what we do is, Keenan's point, we go over and we pray, and each time we've done that, we've seen it just dissolve and go away. So when I'm praying for this Ukrainian situation, I've been praying for the Russians to get discouraged, just massively, a spirit of discouragement that would come on them.
Yeah.
That they would just want to lay down and go on. And it's fun to watch when that happens as well, because you hear some of those things.
Or confusion. I mean, it's just very similar to the presence of God coming before.
It's a sad thing, too, in this day and age where you feel like information is so dispensable to so many people. And because I just think to myself, how many of these 18 to 21-year-old soldiers on either side really even know what they're getting into or why they're in this situation that they're in. And I just think to myself, like, take 10 Russians and 10 Ukrainians, and this may sound hippy-dippy, but, like, send them to a summer camp for 2 weeks. And by the end of that, you know, how much do they hate each other or see their differences? And when it comes down to it, really, what is this conflict even about, and who's pushing this conflict, and how it's just kind of sad to see that the people who are taking the brunt of the damage are young men who are just kind of out there. Like, you see some of the footage of, like, the captured Russian soldiers, and they don't really even know why they're in this war in the first place. And a lot of it is just driven by lies from the top, you know, of just greed and ego. And it's sad to think of, and it sounds a lot like Satan to me.
Yes,
you know, driving
absolutely.
such a war. And so, man, I hope it comes to an end, and the discouragement. It almost is like Pharaoh in Exodus, you know, where you just feel like Putin has just hardened his heart, and he's just in this situation now in front of the world, kind of backed into a corner. But I don't think this has gone at all the way he planned it to go. And you're just like, man, just cut it out. Just count your losses and stop.
Well,
but
I
don't know everything about foreign diplomacy, but that's the way I see it.
Well, I'm glad we don't. Probably a little discouraged if we did.
Right.
I don't know if it was you, Kurt, that brought the example. I don't know where I heard it from, but I think it was you. It was the gentleman who saw a fight, and instead of engaging the fight, he just laid down on the person being beaten.
Yeah.
And what a picture, a countercultural picture of, most of us would say either we gang up with the guys on the guys getting beaten, or we try to defend the person. But this guy chose a third option: just cover this guy,
beat me up instead.
Beat me up.
Yeah.
And how quickly does the crowd disperse?
Yeah.
And I think that what brings it to mind is in an odd way the woman caught in adultery in John chapter 6 when Jesus just picked a third way, when most people would think there's only two outcomes that can come from this.
Right.
Either he picks up a stone with us, or he's not the Messiah or the teacher of the law that he claims to be. And yet there's a third way, and he almost lays himself down on her and then steps up and goes, I don't know. In this case, he did know what she had done, but for us, I don't know what you've done, but this is what mercy looks like. And you know, on a corporate global warfare scale, I don't know, but at least in my own life, I think that's when we're walking with Jesus, there's another way about it. It's a narrow, difficult path, but it's there. So I think we just have to be sensitive to the Spirit, and it comes back to abiding.
Yeah.
I know I'd be a lot more I'd be a lot more lathered up in my own opinions if I wasn't abiding with Jesus. But I'm glad that Jesus wells up within me his convictions when I am abiding.
Yeah. So in abiding or unceasing prayer, we'd walk around in a state of, we'd walk with the Spirit. So all three of those together are kind of the same thing. And so as occasions come up, we'd be far less likely to react to them. And as Zig Ziglar would tell us, we would respond to them in a different way. So that's a good reason to abide right there, because our mind would be in the right spot.
Mm-hmm. One of the verses that came to my mind as we were talking about this was when Paul says, "Vengeance is mine," says the Lord. And just even outside of a self-defense or a warfare perspective, like, how does that even play out in my life? And I think of something even as small as someone cuts me off, and I feel justified to, like, ride really close to their tail and maybe
do you do that, Graham?
Shake my fist.
Do you do that?
Sometimes I do. And I'd say, I told Magdalene, I'm actually pretty good at not getting into road rage. We talked about this the other day. My brother, when I was down in Florida, he says, sometimes I'm the kind of guy that gets out of the car and knocks on other people's windows. He said, they ignore me when I do that. And I said, yeah, I'd ignore you if you did that to me too. He's this big burly dude with a big beard, tattoos, ex-Marine, more,
Sometimes I get out of vehicles and knock on their window.
350 pounds. I'm like, yeah, I'm ignoring you myself. So anyways, I was telling Magdalene though, I said, I think the summertime is usually when the traffic's worse, when people are a little bit more heated, is when I get more road rage. But sometimes, someone cuts you off and you get a little mad and you feel kind of this righteous indignation inside of you.
So hold on, I have a question to ask Kurt then.
But it's even something as stupid as that where you're just like, okay, this person's living their own life. Do I really need to do this? Can I have a perspective for a second just to go, God's going to do what he wants with this person. And I can just have my peace back, as simple as that on the small perspective.
So my question would be, after hearing this, then hearing my challenge with OCD, which is worse or which is better in the kingdom of God? To wrestle with an OCD challenge or road rage like Graham over here?
Yeah. You know what I'm thinking about as I hear Graham's thing.
What?
You're not going to exercise the demon of road rage out of him?
I don't get that much road rage. I told you it happens.
I'm not that OCD.
We'll deal with that afterwards. We'll get that. But it tells you how snowflake.
I laid my soul bare for you guys.
Whoa, careful! You can't use that word.
We are snowflakes here in America because we really. That's the worst issue we have is road rage.
Sure.
And so can you imagine the situation we're talking about in Ukraine where if war came to our shores and how would we handle that? Because then we wouldn't have a choice.
Or just simply go drive in another culture and talk about road rage.
Oh, yeah. No, if you...
go drive in Paris.
I've driven to some
African
countries are amazing.
Well, so, you can just think about even on our home front, though, and I've seen videos where it's like you have these instances, maybe in a traffic stop or whatever it might be. There's a police officer who walks up to a car, and then he says one thing that it's calm, collected, and then for one reason or another, one person escalates the situation, and there's no de-escalation, and then it turns into either this person in the car driving off, shooting the cop, or reverse, the cop shooting the person. I've seen these videos, online. I don't know why Facebook shows me these things, but I'm just thinking to myself,
it's Facebook's fault.
At what point did the one person just want to take the high road in this whole interaction,
right?
And just use their words to just de-escalate the situation, right? But neither one of those people wanted to just go, hey, let's take a breath. Let's just slow things down, And so it's just such our human nature to defend ourselves, to justify ourselves,
pride,
to puff ourselves up, and
so
it's hard to do it in this situation, especially when your blood's boiling.
My moment of confession, when we were in Paris, and instead of taking the train into Paris like we probably should have, we said, well, let's drive. So we're driving from actually the Netherlands, coming out to Paris, and we had a Airbnb that was literally like 3 blocks up from the Rhine, not the Rhine, the river that flows through Paris. Sorry for those Parisians. The Seine. That's it. Wow, nice, Kurt. Yeah. Thanks. Wow. And so it was pretty crazy to get in there, but it was even crazier to get out a couple of days later. So as we're driving out, we got in this like weird construction roadblock. Like I'm talking 7 lanes on cobblestone, like really difficult traffic. One of the common practices of motorcyclists in Paris is to not follow anything that's happening in the traffic and literally just motor their way up in and out. So this really, I'm being honest, it wasn't a place of anger or pride. It was just I was kind of bored. And so Ashley did not appreciate when I would see in my rearview mirrors a motorcyclist coming. And so I would just engage the windshield wash fluid. And funny. The anger that I could fester in some of these motorcyclists because they'd get a little extra shower as they went by the vehicle. I was just seemingly just washing my windshield, but they knew what I was doing. And in that moment, I'm sitting there just willingly escalating this thing because it's quite funny to me. Still is. Not
Maybe
to them.
There's a little envy or jealousy too.
I got
while you're stuck in traffic.
I got a kick out of it. They gave me some hand gestures as they went by. But yeah, to that point that you kind of want. You somehow find yourself in these places where you could care less about how you treat other people. You're not the guy that's going to throw yourself on the body of the guy getting beaten to a pulp. You'd rather just kind of pull out your phone and videotape it. Right. And I think that's where Jesus says, what are you doing? Like, how are you seeking my kingdom to come in this moment? And so that's what we got to wrestle with.
To your point with the cell phone thing, you go the other way, where you see those videos that are up there, and lately there have been a number of them where nobody intervened. Right? Somebody was being accosted.
Yeah. And
it frightens me to think that I wouldn't be the guy to intervene. I'd be so sad if something like that went down and I didn't do what I needed to do. Just talking about it, just kind of, I'd hate to be that guy that didn't do it, especially if you started to hear about it and you knew you were one of the crowd that didn't go in there. And you hear about these things,
of course,
these assaults that happen on buses and things like that, and the people didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we just get in spectator mode, and someone else will handle it.
Or you get your adrenaline gets pumping so much, and you're like, is this really happening? And you get frozen. Right. I think so many of us think that when you get in those threatening moments where it's escalating, people can become frozen.
Yes.
Where
they're
fearful it would happen to them.
Can I tell you guys a story about that?
Well, there's one that there's
an
actual condition. There's a name for it. It happened in New York City.
I know what you're talking about.
A long time ago.
The murder that happened.
Yeah, murder happened. Everybody thought
someone else was
going to call. Yeah.
Yeah. So my mom is the one who would call 911 because back when I was in high school, there's these two bigger women in a car, and they were beating each other up in the front seat of a car in the parking lot of the mall. And
they didn't want to get out of the car to do that?
No, they were pulling each other's hair, smacking each other. It was aggressive. And so my mom, she's not the type of person to pull out her cell phone or walk past. She knocks on the window and she yells, "Stop, stop it." And these girls say, "We're sisters. This is fine. We can do this." And so I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I hope this doesn't turn into something worse than it is. We're sisters. This is fine. My mom literally pulls out her phone. 911. You see that? Yeah. 911. I'm going to call the police if you don't stop. And so they stop beating each other up, and the situation ceases. But my mom she dove right in, turned into mom. She wore her mom hat, went right in for it, and just told them, "I'm calling 911. I don't care. You guys keep going. I'm going to stop it." Yeah. I think more of us, we kind of, maybe that's a little extreme, but more of us, we need to be that guy.
I want to be like Kim.
Yeah.
Well, we had a moment.
It's uncomfortable though.
During
I was
summer,
uncomfortable.
Summer of 2020, it was raining. It was like torrentially raining out in the parking lot. There was no cars in the parking lot, and Bill and Meredith, a few of us were standing at the front, kind of, just chatting, and all of a sudden a car pulls kind of deeper out in the further parking lot.
Sketchy.
And out gets this young couple, guy and a gal. And so they're clearly not happy with each other, and they're yelling and they're screaming at each other. Well, then we see him hit her.
Oh.
Right. And they're probably just shy of high school. They're probably just older than high school age young adults. And so I start jogging out there. Well, this guy starts mouthing off to me, and she's still clinging to him, right? So you get this really unique situation where you go, okay, clearly she doesn't want to be. So you find yourself in these situations where you're trying to seek first the kingdom of God, but there's some very unique, fast-paced, and emotionally heightening moments that you're trying to think through. And when he started coming to me and using certain language towards me, I'm sitting there going, okay, now what's going to happen? And so you find yourself in these weird situations where you go, am I just going to get hit and fall on the ground and be a boxing martyr? And think, or do you dodge, duck, dip, and dive and swing back? So right. I do. Yeah. It's always much more complicated than the person watching the YouTube video going, oh, that's what I would have done. Because
was that the Patches O'Houlihan dodge, duck, dive, and dodge?
May have been. Yep. The 5 rules to dodgeball.
I caught that. Oh man, so we got to beat that guy, huh?
Yeah.
We got to be that guy. Yeah.
And I think it's important to remind ourselves that that's okay and that's what we're called to do.
Yeah. Sacrifice.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful. It's the ways of the kingdom, and when we abide, we experience it even more.
Awesome. Well, that's it for us, you guys. I hope you can be that guy in whatever setting Christ calls you to go into as you're being a person of peace in this world and de-escalating situations that rise into violence at times. Anyways, I'm making an outro speech now, and I'm not sure exactly what I'm saying, but thanks for listening, and Adam will do this next week, so thanks for tuning in, you guys. All right, bye-bye.